Thank you, Andres. Thanks to Overgaden for inviting me. Thanks to Jakob Jakobsen to come, whom all of you know, I hope. And in terms of collaborative, cooperative, and radical movements education, I'm following his work for the last 20 years, so I'm really happy. It is fascinating how terms promiscuously flirt between disciplines, between nomenclaturas of geology, sociology, psychology, spiritualism, and politics, exchanging their semantic fragments, properties, accountments on metonymical markets. Substitute terms are more preferable economical vehicles as just terms, because substitute terms carry the salient aspect of the metaphor, as described by Dietrich Gentner, George Lakoff, or other soldiers of linguistic wars. Terms are elusive cumulations of extended contexts, composite homogenes, discotic singularities, spontaneous prolongations of standard languages, the metaphoresis, metal and meta, as we have used to pettifog about Iron Curtain of the Cold War, words established in 1989, from positivity of political correctness to negativity of mind control, non-linearity, contemporaneity, www, globality, net, web, established 1991, spider and flies, black widows of security, substitutes, prostheses, replace absent, missing, lost, hidden, forgotten, suppressed, erased, amputated, stolen, forbidden, or impropriate, according to subject, disposition, location, position, situation, object. What we can't afford, have scruples about, want to avoid. Object-oriented ontologies with subject-oriented ontologies dissolve in radical neo-nihilism. New names are extracted, amalgamated, fused, enriched by stimulating additives from old words. New names like to look like old words in the realm of scientism. It is the regressive eclecticism of the jargon of lingua scientia, which always turns back to conservative values, retro-evolutionary relevance, math and myth cosmocracies, oxidation by dead languages, exhumed mummies, corpses and corpse, plastic surgery of academia, and robotization of privatized agora, negative poetics, dark sciences, ambidexter time history memory archive, immortal pharmacon, cure and poison in the same time. Substitute terms turned to are exerted as terminus technicus, to position science above arts in the epistemological hierarchy of truth is ridiculous. We have always believed in the relevancy of machines more than in the honesty of people. Computation of scales of blinded Lady Justitia and her sword, scales of Justitia and galactic scales of human outpost. The seductive cyborg Pandora, after Hephaestus, the creator of automata, or Douglas Hofstadter and Donna Haraway a bit later, and others. We have always had extended, exteriorized brains, pharmacons, writing, reminding, writing, forgetting, memory out of voluntarily deformed brain, after Plato and others. We have always perceived and recognized the world just from our caves, only through shadows and echoes of reality, rather keeping choric openness of becoming than staying in being, after Plato and others. We have always been schizophrenic. Rather than making conscious evaluations in novel or unexpected situations, we would hallucinate a voice or God, or other master, mother, matrix, authority, normativeness, internet, giving admonitory advice or commands and obey without question. We would not be at all conscious of our own thought processes per se, after Deleuze and Guattari or Julian Jaynes, the father of bicameralism. and others. It was never possible to come up with an unambiguous way to distinguish science from religion, magic, or mythology. There is no fixed scientific method, so it is best to have an anything-goes attitude towards technologies, after Paulo Feyerabend and others. Technologies always create novel forms of occult phenomena, after Mircea Eliade, Eric Davis, and others. Normalities of black stacks of cosmologies always reached physically beyond planetary scale, after Benjamin Breton and others. There was never any strict division between organic and unorganic, biotic and abiotic, after Michael Mayer, Jane Bennett, or Jeremy England, and others. Substitute terms, those shadows and echoes, are mediators, conciliators, joints, dynamizators, interactivizators, irritants, vehicles, containers of uncontainable reality. Substitute terms stand in the middle, amid, inter, between, within, among, subject, object, meta, implication, subtext, subtext, hypertext, above, below, in the bosom, beyond, behind. The apparently empty space between objects and subjects is the majoritarian and supreme part of the universe en bloc. The space between object and subject is much bigger than all objects and subjects together. The space between is led by mediums and agents. Hypertext, meta-language, program, energy, light, temperature, caloricum, fire, Prometheus, Prometheum, fiat lux, creatio ex nihilo, electricity, luminescence, radiation, sublimation, explosion, warmth, cold, light, dark, enlightenment, alchemical boom, alternative, bio, organic, cosmos, polemos, logos, graphos, nomos, in ex sources, in ex and ex in, nanomagneto-optics, wireless friendships, which are fat, free, and pH neutral, and sugarless, but still sweet, missions and emissions, and emanations. The recalcitrant sum of acquirements, hypernature, force the intersubjectivity to restratify, institutionalize, industrialize to the mediation environment, crude normality, surveillance normativity, online, which has vanished back to on air incognito, ether. Mediation, agency, ministry, reconciliation was formerly known as alternative dispute resolution, once private and confidential, or even sacred. Later, metamorphosed to manufactured empathy, composite, metonymical, analogical, metaphorical, personified. Mediation means association, alliance, corporations, companies, cooperatives, holdings, trust, entities, identities, connections, translations, interpretations, hermeneutics, valuation, trade-wise, buying and selling, recycling stereotypes, and transfiguration of rituals. The mediation ether, topos, vertical geography, does not only mediate as subordinate service apparatus, but creates superordinate autonomous production, subjective pathogenicity, monitoring, stalking, collecting, and post-producing personal data based on utter adaptability of form without changing its internal molecular structure, viscoticity. The mediation ether fastens crystallization processes, particle accelerators. The mediation ether synthesizes knowledges and attitudes. Omnidisciplinary mediation ether singularizes plurality. Antonymical twins, didymos, are losing antipodes symmetrically from antipodes to iPods. Recycled trash. Trash, source of new germs. Sources, transfiguration, alchemy, phoenix. The mediation ether is out of any aesthetical, ethical, moral polarization. The mediation ether is uni-neutral per se. This ether is magnetized, pneuma, psyche. It is a form of self-referential quintessence, like Ouroboros, one, the all, henosis, oneness, singularity understood by Plato and others already. Compasses do not work there at all. Compasses, geo versus geo, rotate in quasaric lunacy. Focuses multiply, targets reciprocate, invisible waves are visualized. The color of temperature, real synesthesia. No self-orientation is possible anymore, only meta-orientation, rotation and advertisement, entertainment, circulation, good chemistry and bad chemistry. No aura, no charisma, only waves and fields. No self, only some transparent blocks of matter, graphene, no oneness, nonus, after Thomas Metzinger and others. Being magnetized, being paralyzed, or ecstasized, trance and trance, mean nearly the same in terms of so-called consciousness, being here and there, staying and moving, static and dynamic, out-of-body experiences on a permanent basis. The user-friendly mediation climate is operated by friends and foes mutually. It's a gravity-less warfare of exterritoriality. It is an anarchic space, yes. Even it should sound strange to many of you. George Soros, Elon Musk, Peter Thiel, Dmitry Itskov, Yuri Milner, Mark Zuckerberg, Patrick Friedman, actually the grandson of Nobel Prize laureate in economical science Milton Friedman, or enigmatic entity of Satoshi Nakamoto, are all technophile anarchists, crypto-anarchists, and anarcho-capitalists. The ether is an arena of a bloodshed of opposing freedoms. The ether is both battlefield and bed of lovers, stratas and spheres, linguistic bonds, analogical correlations between geo and socio, stones and bones, limbs and cutlery, after Peter Sloterdijk, or even more precisely according to separation distress theory of Jaak Panksepp, micro-uteri and macro-uteri, the most extreme injustice of no possibility of return to warm and humid, soft, safe, generous mother's womb. There is some mediation ether, and there is some unregulated but highly controlled mediation traffic, where horror vacui is combined with claustrophobia and agoraphobia is combined with astrophobia. Paranormality there, paranoia here. Proletariat was adjusted to knowledge and information kinetics 50 years ago. Information and entertainment industries have fused to infotainment 40 years ago. The answerability of information has cardinally changed. The documentary has fused to mockumentary 30 years ago. There is no division between fiction and fact. There is mediation between fiction and fact, mediation, moderation, and meditation. There is business relation between fiction and fact, joint venture, copulation of sensory-motorical and moral coordinates, and it was always like that. Democracies changed to demotainments, or mockucracies of lesser evil. No sense of good and bad anymore. Everything changes. The sphere of globe changes. The sponge of brain changes. Polemus, polemus. Mediation ether is silently colonized, converted to the most powerful industry, above, beyond industries, meta-industry, the para-industry. The mediation para-industry mediates for us to mediate us for them. Is the metabiosis, phorezy, parasitism, or inquilinism? It had accelerated by bankruptcy of aristocracy, abolishment of serfdom, aesthetically accompanied by romanticism, cultivation, microbes, culture, GMO, the future constructed on foundations consisting of ruins, natural and cultural debris, geology, anthropology, archaeology, paleontology, forensics, museology, facing future which is like in Rome and is not the Rome itself. the metaphores, the birth of contemporaneity. No love yet, only amorousness still, romance, internal affairs versus foreign affairs, prolongation of assisted erotics, no penetration, no sex. Romanticism is fiction. It means like in roman, like in novel. And Kenneth Bach said that life is not like drama, but life is drama. There are roles we play, instead, bodies we move. And lingua franca, or lingua romana, vehicular languages, bridge languages, trade languages, moves us from internationalism to internationalism. Some need of some tragic heroes, embodiments, personifications, models, idols, icons, statues, cults, to follow their voices inside of our bicameral cortexes, to Google. Who knows what we will do? Future is happening before present. And arrogant avant-garde was just an infantile infantry which was killed first. Individualism, pluralism, liberalism is wired to relativism of class, strata, time, space, mobility, speed, reach, accessibility, affordability, distribution, value and price, mortgages, natura morta, memento mori, vanitas, nihilism, which has logical consequence in consumerism, organized egoisms. Consumerism constructs the perpetuum mobile of consumption and reproduction. Consumerism is mimetic autocratization of predatory nature. Democracy is cyber-romantic. The contemporary is cyber-eclectic, new, mutated to now. Cyber, kybernetikos, means those who just watch, voyeurs. Freedom of choice and combination and expression after agreement with given conditions. Click, agree, click, go, it's free. Ultra mimesis of gods, providers of access to externalized content. The contemporary, the eternal temporaneity, needs a lot of energies and its consequent ash heaps, cemeteries, debris, waste, fossils, minerals and elements, and sources, rare earths. The contemporary is actually anti-ecological. Yes, we can't be and we are not manifestatively ecological anymore. All of us using Max, American company, which gets all rare earths from African Congo, where peasants extract them manually in slavery conditions, turning landscape to toxic desert. Poverty is the most toxic substance. The mediation para-industry is an imperialism of potentiality. Proactive diaspora collaborates with proactive xenos. Everything is mixed, no sadness, no joy, only mixed emotions of left, right, up, down, west, north, east, south. East as a danger of west, south as a danger of north. The first, the second, the third worlds, and the X-natures. Cosmocracy of virtuality. Cosmocracy of creativity ex nihilo in nihilo, for circulation only. Creativity is substitution. Substitution, instruments, devices, tools, weapons, is prosthetic. Pharmacon, pharmacon, pharmacon. The world is a consensus within senses, thesis and prosthesis, not the prosthetic imperialism. There is permanent balance within the mimetic and the creative, constant conflict within the plural and singular oscillations. Everything is just a vibration, irritant of cerebral cortex. The brain converts reality via algorithmical schemes, capacity and utilization, electrochemo, hierarchical abstraction which aims to conceptual blending, appropriate relativization of true to useful. Eyes don't see anything, eyes only look. And the pump called heart beats in darkness, 180 BPM. The mediation wonderland is tachycardic. The brain sees. The neuroplastic mind sees taste. Conversion, conversation, controversion, version between tastes and images, apophenic, hallucinogenic, entoptic, mnemonic, and logical. And sounds and numbers and words and colors and lights and temperatures and motions and emotions and smells and touches transition from ideation to materialization, 3D printing, the third sex, intermediation, stimuluses. Conversation, con, which means for, and verse, which means against, all in one. Get it for the half price now. Holistics, synesthetics, aesthetics, ethics, morality. The avatarized brain sees and consequently post-produces approximative subcultural modes and models, top models and bottom models, top-down models and bottom-up models, out of recycled reality, communicative forms, metempsychosis of Phoenix. The cyborg extensions, Terminator, Iron Man, Maria of Metropolis, Robot, Nyctalope, John A.B.C. Smith, Frankenstein, Golem, Homunculus, Galatea, Pandora, Talos, Adam Eve, Eve, Adam, automata, cyborgs, replicants, receive higher prominence, immaterial limb, invisible hand, telekinesis, teleportation, telepathy, television, than the radical body. In the mnemonic instrument, the alpha machine, the Übermachine we trust. Substitute terms are mediators between letters and numbers, numbers and matters, between de facto and de jure, between normality and normativity, between knowledge and experience, between explicit, implicit, and tacit, between transmitters and receivers, between producers and consumers, between input and output, between income and expense, between bride and groom, between impeacher and defender, between convex and concave, between good and bad, between logi and graphy and nomi, geology and geography and geonomy, and geopolitics and etc. Substitute terms are secret agents between pampered theory and corrupted practice. The mediation ether is a language-oriented environment. Standard languages proceed through sensational evolution, explosion of maximalization, minimalization. Polexes change their physiology versus polexes change the physiology of brain, where hybrid particulates driftingly compete. Words, numbers, names, titles, brands, labels, schemes, shem and shame and guilt and fear and pain industries, anger, rage. Emanations, signs, symbols, emblems, slogans, icons, domains, tags, modes, codes, encryptions, ciphers to clarify or to enigmatize. Cyber occult, cyber esoteric, cyber hermetic, pirouettes, arabesques, ornaments, memes, rousing expressions, muddy delta of massive data, the river which has lost banks and public funds which support private banks, soft, hard, light, heavy, 2D, 3D, brutal, NATO, micro, macro, marks and gestures. The final exact is negotiated approximately, value and price. Negotiation communication is poetic. The entire cognition communication sphere is amorphous, approximate, speculatively poetic. Democracy is based on sympathy. Judgments there are aesthetic. Substitutes legally imitate. Samples, mixes, collages, fakes, hoaxes, freedom of choice and mixture, hyper-eclecticism, to mediate, to catalyze, to moderate, mediation and medium, communication, education, instruction, training, transmission, undescribed material between astral objects, creationism, spiritualism, solution, medium, rare, rare window, mirroring, reflection, objects occur bigger and closer as they, subjects getting smaller, are. Not one after the other, but all together in the entheogenic kaleidoscope, the psychedelics of an infrastructure, an extra statecraft of Kalle Easterling and others. The revolution as a term set its position in the technological development exclusively for good. There is no chance of ontological revolution, and there is no reason, not even for revolt anymore, as Hakim Bey and many of us with him dreamed about before. No argument for resistance, civil disobedience. Everything is available, flexibly. Magnum opus is in mass production already. Screen, display, is a metamaterial. Following the alchemical chimera of lapis philosophorum, Mediums are both organic and inorganic, biotic and abiotic, material and immaterial, visible and invisible, illuminative and obscurant. There is trance between ordinary and precious, prosaic and poetic, tenor, ground, source, vehicle, figure, target, linguistic and non-linguistic, and trance between mortality and immortality, the elixir of life, infinite lifespan of Midr-Itzkov magma, liquid crystal, chrysopoeia, liquid intelligence, crystallized intelligence, artificial intelligence, peripheral intelligence, eccentric intelligence, central intelligence, agencies and agents. Rare earth is a medium of mediation ether. Everything went out of Mother Earth and her rights, grounds, soils, muds, slimes and ores, hunters and gatherers, earthlings, statues, automata and robots, natural, artificial. Mother Earth is Mama, which is universal among Indo-European languages, primordial, impulsive, instinctive, CNS, automatic interjection, onomatopoeia of sucking the nipple. Mother Earth is matrix, breast, womb, cave, abyss, volcano, mine, underground, subculture, hell, Kora. Hunger, desire, lust, love, sex, aggressivity and fear, security, warmth, shelter, heaven, oikos, dwelling, home, habitus. Mother Earth is matter, mass, substance, averum, material. Mother Nature, or Greek Gaia, or Roman Terra Mater, or Mesoamerican Pachamama, or Pan-African Mamiwata, breeds matrices, formulas, patterns, metonymic androids, genoids, hermaphrodites, autarctic eye people, from megalithic to terralithic societies, things. Matter, matter, material, her or its weight, gender, sex, self. Matter does not matter at all for us. Only masturbation of projection of roles counts. The weight of load and the weight of evidence, matter effect. Homes, domes and domains, hard rock and heavy metal, infras and ultras, white noise, upgrade, speed, data, absolute adaptability of capitalism. Adaptability is the foundation of culture. Analog materialism was there before digital idealism. Idealism, apophenic per se, has appeared as an artificially luminescent solution of obscure, occult, mysterious, mystical, mythical, unembraceable phenomena, human light versus natural dark, idealistic light versus materialistic dark, reactive behavior gateway from unknown around, like neodymium exoterra sanglow torch. Idealism was founded to manipulate people or to escape practicalities. Idealism is order, materialism is primordiality. Idealism tried to negate neuroplasticity. The most of materialist thinkers are actually pure idealists indeed. Anthropocentric magnitudes of natural versus supernatural are mutative, as embodied in conglomerate interfaces of the god of time Janus. Materialism now cumulates polemical materiality versus controversial immateriality. Rare earth is the material, weight number x in grams, of immateriality, weight number epsilon in bytes. Rare earth is the figurative substitute of the immaterialism, another ism, representation, another infantry. Thank you.
Said it all.
Too many words.
No, I think please. Oh, you start.
It's very short. I know the idea, but I can't remember it. So could you please elaborate on materialism as idealism?
Yes. I'm not trained philosopher, neither political scientist. I'm trained poet and artist, and as the the majority of my generation, I could not study curatorial studies because there were no curatorial studies. But anyhow, I studied art history for 12 years. So to me, how I use materialism and idealism is purely poetic, both in the sense of poiesis, production of words and meanings, and both in terms of poetry, so to have a certain intuitive affiliation to particular meanings. And materialism to me is something what is behind the idea, is something what is metaphysical. And idealism is a manipulative, it's a gateway, it's an escape from something what you can't embrace. It is a protective behavior, and as it is protective behavior in the case of individual, it is equally manipulative in terms of the control of the mass. So simply like this. So when we speak about how we use also the word like idealist, someone who is dreamy, somehow who draws utopias, we call him in exerted language idealist. And basically anyhow, in the writing of how can I say, right-affiliated thinkers, there is nothing interesting happening last, for example, 40 years. The whole intellectual discourse is left. And this discourse is so-called materialist discourse, or neo-material. But actually, there is a certain refusal of practicalities, for example, of political science to enter the practical politics. There is a certain living in a cloud, and like Swifty and Laputa, to be out, to be uplifting. So, for example, like, I don't know, accelerationism and its relation to practical politics is completely illusionary. So accelerationism to me is a theory which is idealist and purely poetical.
Is there?
Yeah, sure, if I may.
Maybe that was a sign. I should just not say anything. But I will anyway, then I'll stop. Thanks for the very forceful talk. It's moving. It seems like you are, I mean, you could have been a philosopher in my mind if you hadn't told me or told us that you weren't, that you would have been. So, and that's meant as a compliment. You mentioned at one point that democracy is a romantic, I think, idea, but a romantic notion or something. So I'd like to maybe return to that problematic and relations to this, the digital and the post-digital, perhaps. You can see democracy in different ways. You can also see democracy as antagonistic or agonistic, for example, if you're familiar with that distinction. But is there any way, or could you relate that perhaps to the experiences that we have that we can take with us through art, perhaps, and what art gives us in the post-digital or the rematerialized sense? Does that make any sense to you, the question?
Yeah.
I can put it differently also. Okay, thanks.
At the first, I have to describe simply what I mean by the poetics or aesthetical affiliation of democracy. At the first, you can find these things in Jean Gracier, etc., etc. Actually, I think this week there is such a conference at Yale University which deals with aesthetics of politics. Somehow, I worked in different enterprises in my life because it was my interest, and also it was social need. I need to make money, etc. So for a year, I was a chief of a creative and strategic department of the biggest advertisement company in the Central Europe, which is called Grey. And a year was enough. It's an extremely difficult job, and it's a brainwashing environment. But what I have learned is that how people vote, majority of people, they vote in just following sympathy, which is a statical judgment. Majority of people, but a huge majority of people have no information or intellectual access to political programs of parties or its representatives. So, in this case, if we say that majority of those people who vote according to an image, and we go also back to the speech number one, and also to a subline of this conference, like with this, you know, super slick. It's a catastrophe. Or we have to just accept it, that it's like that, and somehow find a way out of it. So I believe that it's crazy, but Trump or Theresa May, or what the fuck is her name, or Polish government and etc., or Orban in Hungary, this is not result of conscious, rational judgment. It's purely aesthetical. And media, in this case, they play the role of the irritant, because media are interested only in rotation. They are interested in clicks and etc., etc., etc. So when there is this hot topic, which is related to fear industry, and the fear industry and the pain industry are the biggest in the world, then they just go and they follow it. And here we have it. So I don't believe in democracy anymore, unfortunately, because I think the relation between the mass media environment and democracy is extremely controversial, and it negates the democratical possibility.
So you don't believe in the possibility that art can help us maybe redefine?
No.
Okay, so
No.
what are we doing then?
No, the thing is that to me art is a theory. If I have to speak in kind of like a bicameralist terms, like 1 and 2 scales, then art is a theory. And theory makes more research, test and experiment, and is not applied. So what can art do is, of course, to do this like deep research, to test it, to do experiments, to find some results. But the way of application is like fucking long, you know. This is the same as in political science. What is the practical impact of Jacques Rancière in the French politics, in the French political spectrum? Is there any, you know? Of course there is something, you know, but there is no direct influence. I mean, why? I mean, if there is Rancière, why there is Le Pen, you know?